Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's video. Today we're going to be covering more prevention methods. Now, as we recall from last week, we covered 3 key prevention methods, and now we're really going to be focusing in on, what are more ways to prevent HIV transmission. Now, there really is no cure anywhere in the world for HIV, unfortunately. However, there's some fantastic methods that can be implemented, to prevent onward transmission from HIV. So some of these approaches have been proven to be 100% effective in further spread of HIV. And some of those ways are known as the A, B, and C. So the ABCs, through an HIV standpoint, we're going to be hearing some of them, and you might be thinking like, oh, well, I've heard that term before, but disregard everything you've heard in the past. We're going to be covering these meanings, and they have a different context when talking about HIV, okay? So the first one, we're just going to be starting with A. A stands for abstinence. Now, we've probably heard this term before. However, abstinence through an HIV context stands for the absence of unprotected penetrative sex. So what does that mean? Well, let's say, for example, a person hugs another person, they're practicing abstinence. If a person kisses another person, they're practicing abstinence, as well as if they're holding their hands. Now, if there is penetration, that's not being abstinence, whether that penetration be anal, vaginal, or oral. Now, something important to keep in mind is that practicing oral sex is not considered to be abstinent. Why? Because at some point through oral sex, there will be penetration, whether that be, from a penis to a mouth, or a mouth placed in a vagina. There is penetration, and there is a high risk of HIV infection. So, oral sex, vaginal sex, and anal sex, once again, is not considered to be forms of abstinence. Being in separate rooms, that's considered being abstinent. Okay, so now moving forward, B stands for being faithful. Now, once again, being faithful in an HIV context does not mean being married or being in a monogamous relationship. It means being in a mutually committed relationship with one or more people, that have tested negative for HIV, and that no one outside that relationship is having sex with other people. So whether a person is in a relationship with one person, or there's 3 or more people in this relationship, there really isn't a difference as long as they have all been tested for HIV, they have all tested negative. That's being faithful through an HIV context, and it's a way of preventing HIV transmission. Now, the third one is C. C stands for condoms, and really, it's really important not only for the prevention of HIV, but it's also good in prevention for other sexually transmitted disease as well as pregnancy. So we want to stay away from natural condoms, and we just want to use either latex condoms or polyisoprene condoms. Why do we want to stay away from natural condoms? Well, because some of the material that natural condoms are made of can be broken down by HIV. So if that happens, there really is no protection from HIV. So condoms has been proven to be a great way of preventing, again, HIV, other sexually transmitted diseases, even pregnancy. So now just remember to use like 1 condom per sex and per person, per sex act and per person. So what do I mean by that? It's really, don't reuse your condoms. That's not helping in a prevention method. That's not using them properly, as well as using 2 condoms at the same time. That is risky because there is a high probability that the condoms will break. due to the friction of one another. So really, using a condom can be an effective way of preventing HIV transmission, and also using them properly. So as long as they're used properly, there really isn't much to worry about. A person is still, preventing HIV transmission. Now, just to recap everything that we covered so far, ABCs stand for abstinence. Now, abstinence is defined as the absence of unprotected penetrative sex. B stands for being faithful, and that just means that being in a mutually committed relationship where everyone has been tested and has tested negative for HIV, and no one is having sex outside that relationship. And the last one was C, which we covered, was condoms. Staying away from natural condoms and knowing how to use condoms properly can be effective ways in preventing HIV transmission. Now, the good thing about this prevention methods and the ABCs is that really, if one doesn't work for a person, they can always use the other two. If using condoms doesn't work for a person, they can always practice being abstinent and practice being faithful. Or, if they don't want to practice being faithful, they can always use, they can rely on being abstinent and using condoms. So that's all for today. That's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.